Hey, I'm going to make this short video just for demonstration. I'm not actually going to cook anything with it, but here's this sous vide cooker or heater that I had bought, and really I'm happy with it. It was the cheapest that I could find on Amazon at the time, but just the way that I was thinking about getting it to try it out, first of all, you can see I'm using an Instant Pot. The inner part of the Instant Pot as my cooking vessel. It's just convenient for us, and because of the clamp here, the way this clamps on, it definitely opens up plenty big enough to go around the whole Instant Pot. And then I feel like the cooker of the Instant Pot is a good insulator for trying to help maintain the water temperature once it reaches the set cooking temperature. I've never tried it, but it easily fits on. It even fits on a little easier or better because you don't have to spring open this clampy. As you can see, it's sprung open almost the whole way, but fits right on there good, and it would just work on this vessel alone, or if you had something, just a regular pot that you want to use, and it would work good. Here's the display fired up. As I mentioned before, there's 5 buttons on it. There's the on-off button, the down, up, and here's the time, if you want to set the time button. And this is if you want to set the temperature. This is the button for it. So if I want to set the temperature, I touch that, and then it says setting, current, and then it starts flashing, and then I either up or down, and this shows kind of my only complaint about it is these touch sensitive buttons on this face. Sometimes they don't work really good. Now it's working good for me, but there's been times like right there, it just paused for no reason. I haven't lifted my finger, but it just stops. So there's often a time in my frustration I start just hammering on the button to try and set it. But that's the only issue that I've had with this thing. And I believe, as I read reviews, that other people had mentioned a similar kind of thing, that the buttons aren't super reliable, but it works. Here, same thing for setting the time. And that's hours and minutes. So you can set the time and whatever the temperature. Another thing that I like about it, and I don't know if this was every machine or not, but on this one, if I set this right now for 1 hour and 41 minutes to cook at, what was my temperature, 108.4. Once again, this is just to demonstrate how it works. I'm not actually going to try and cook anything with this, just a demonstration. But the timer doesn't start timing until the water reaches the set temperature, which to me makes a lot of sense. And honestly, we've used this thing I think 5 times now. Not super common for us to try and cook. I think every time we've tried to cook some kind of beef in this. One time we might have had a pork, but we've used this a handful of times, and it works as expected. The very first time we used it with, once again, a lot of the YouTube videos I watched about using a sous vide is you can buy a cheaper cut of meat, use this to cook it, and it may turn out to be better than just a cheap, kind of tough, stringy cut of beef. The very first time, I agree to that we bought something relatively cheap, and it turned out excellent. Now the following 2 times we used it on beef, it wasn't quite as good, but we might have got even a worse cut of beef those next 2 times. But it's still, it's just like slow cooking. You know, naturally, if you kind of heat a piece of meat at a lower temperature for a longer time, that it can make it more tender. And we've done this, normally the process is I will get a Ziploc baggie, I'll put the meat in it, I'll put some marinade in it, and try and get as much air as I can out of the Ziploc baggie and then seal it. And as far as doing that, I've tried a vacuum sealer once, and that I had borrowed, and it worked okay, but there was a little bit of issue using that vacuum sealer and not having the marinade get sucked up into the sealer. So I found it works just as good for us as we just put it in a gallon-sized Ziploc baggie with the marinade, and then either I can dunk the bag in here and almost up to the, you know, I'll push the opening of the bag down to just about the water level, so that will force all the air out of the bag. Then I seal it, and then I'll just use some other little clip to hold the baggie on the side of the Instant Pot vessel and let it cook. And it's worked good. It also worked with that vacuum sealer, but like I said, it was also trying to suck the marinade up into the machine, and it just wasn't worth it for me to run out and invest in a pressure, you know, a vacuum sealer to use this. And it works good, like I said. The very first time I put it in, I set it for a temperature, and then once it reached temperature, I got a digital kitchen thermometer that we have, and I put that in the water. And I don't recall exactly, but I do remember noticing that it was within a couple of degrees what the digital thermometer said versus what this said. And once this is set at a temperature, and I came back to check it an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours later, it is still saying that temperature. So to me, it's maintaining that temperature really good. And overall, I think it was very worth the money that I paid for it. We're not using it every day, so it didn't make sense for me to buy a sous vide that cost up towards $100 or even more, that might have a couple more features or that had a little bit better reviews than this one had. Like I said, my only issue has been the sensitivity of these touch pad buttons up here, that they're not super reliable all the time. But sorry for the long video, but I wanted to be complete and what I'm telling everybody about this to hopefully really help somebody who's looking to get this machine, or whatever future iteration is they have of it, or just any other sous vide, to maybe see how it can work for them. The other thing that this does have on it that I'll mention is there's some different air codes that there is a book here that came with it. It came with 2 books, a sous vide cookbook that has a couple of recipes in it. Oops. Not just for cooking meats, but they have like one was how to make applesauce, and so it's super basic, definitely not an exhaustive list. And then it has a little general chart of what types of things you might want to cook and what the temperature settings and the cook times would be for those items. And also it came with the instruction manual that, like a lot of things, and the manual is fairly decent. Like a lot of things made in China, sometimes the English translation seems a little goofy, but definitely readable, and work good enough for me to explain or to figure out how to do things on this. And as we see, it's multiple languages in here. And there are a couple of error codes. Let's see, was there a thing that described the error codes in the manual? I'm not seeing a thing for error codes, but this does have a couple of errors on it. One is if the water level is too low. It says, let me pull this out here. You see, it does have an impeller at the bottom that is circulating the water with the heater. And I don't know if you can see it on there or not, but there's a minimum water level and a maximum water level on the thing. If you try and start this without enough water in there, it does give an error code. It will not run unless there's enough water in there. So, you know, and that error code was E3, as I recall. So if you get that error code with it, first thing to do is check and be sure there's enough water in the pot. But once again, sorry for the long video. Hope it's not too boring. I want it to be complete and hopefully be a help to somebody who's considering getting this machine.